Welcome to Holographic Health Insights, the podcast where science meets soul for complete well-being. Join hosts Reverend Anne-Marie Byers and her daughter Rochelle Generis as they explore transformative health approaches that integrate body, mind, and spirit, from energy medicine to holistic practices.
In this episode, Anne-Marie and Rochelle explore how an alkaline diet supports cellular health, reduces inflammation, and creates harmony in the body, one bite at a time. Welcome back, everyone. Skip Monty, co-host / producer, back in the studio with owners of Holographic Health, Inc., Reverend Anne-Marie Byers and Rochelle Generis. Good to see you ladies both again. How's your week been?
Good, Skip. How about yours?
It's been great, and but I am thankful that it's Friday, as I'm sure you are as well.
Same here.
Awesome.
Here.
So today we are nourishing the conversation with a deep dive into an alkaline diet and why it's more than just a wellness trend. Ladies, let's talk about the importance of an alkaline diet. Take it away.
Well, years ago, I had a cancer diagnosis, and I had a good friend who was a medical doctor who said, "Have you read Alkalize or Die by Dr. Theodore Peruti?" And I had had this book on my bookshelf for years, but I had never actually read the book. And it talks about the importance of eating an alkaline diet, how certain foods produce alkaline ash in the body, and how viruses and bacteria really cannot live in an alkaline environment. The same is true with cancers. So I read the book and finally found that Dr. Peruti lived in the same city I did, and ended up with a practitioner doing a holographic health assessment the day before I had my first surgery. And so I had met Dr. Peruti after that and embraced the whole holographic health system because I utilized that to heal. But the importance is foods that create an alkaline ash in the body are your fruits and vegetables. Some of the best alkaline producing foods are lemon and watermelon. And you hold a lemon in your hand and it feels kind of acidic. But when you ingest that, it creates an alkaline ash in the body. And you want to eat at least, we have an 80-20 chart that lists the alkaline producing foods in order. So on the alkaline end are, of course, the lemon and watermelon, but it's also how you live your life. The love and kindness, the prayer, the meditation, those are all alkaline forming. And then it moves over into the acidic foods and the acidic lifestyle. And acidic foods are, the acid producing foods are meat and sugar. Sugar is one of the most acidic foods and acid producing foods. And then, of course, there are artificial sweeteners. They're even worse, if you can imagine. And overwork, anger, fear, jealousy, stress, all of those. And you have, a range on our chart of foods going from the alkaline to the acidic. So you want to stay more on that alkaline end, and then you want to combine your foods. And in the very center of the Alkalize or Die book is a chart that Dr. Peruti developed on how to combine foods to create an alkaline environment. And so vegetables need to be the very center of your diet. And they have the good fiber and combine well with anything. And then you have fruits, which should be eaten first or alone, and are all moderately alkaline forming, even when eaten together. Then you have the heavy proteins, the meats and the starches, You should never combine meats and starches. So a sandwich or meat and potatoes is the worst thing you can do because those are extremely acid forming. If you're going to do a protein, doing a light protein like beans, nuts, cheese, etc., those combine better. Now, combined with vegetables, those are slightly alkaline forming. And those are only slightly acid forming when combined with vegetables. So, rule of thumb, never eat meat and potatoes. Eat good fruits and vegetables. Eat fruits first or alone. And if you're going to do a protein with the meal, do nuts, cheese, or beans. And if you follow this and you reduce stress, you take care of yourself and balance your life with some prayer and meditation, drinking lemon water, and drinking good water. We talked about that in another segment. Then you will do a lot better in your health. And this is what is so important. And so I found this to be true. The big part of my diet was how I was combining things and then reducing stress and following this chart, eating more berries and nuts and that kind of thing. And I've been a vegetarian since 1990. That was not the issue, but it was how I was combining things as well. And I think Rochelle's going to talk a little bit about how you get children to eat a better diet.
Well, before you do, I want to jump in and say I'm now depressed because meat and potatoes, not together. So what about fish and potatoes? Or is it the same?
It's still a heavy protein. Fish is not as heavy a protein as beef or chicken, etc. But it's still, beef is the most acidic, along with drugs and cigarettes and pork and sugar. And then next is chicken and deer and rabbit and that kind of turkey. And then down one step from that is fish. So at least fish is not as acidic as chicken or beef, but it's still up there in the moderate. Beef and chicken are up in the extremely acid forming category, according to Dr. Broody. But then fish is down in the moderate category. And so it just goes down, from there. So it would be better to eat fish than beef, but it would be better to eat any of that with vegetables instead of potatoes or bread.
What about eggs?
Eggs are really kind of in the same, they're down in the moderate category. They are not as acidic as fish, so they're still in the moderate category, but less acidic than fish. You'd be better off with an egg than fish, better off with fish than chicken, better off with fish with chicken than beef. So,
and I think the key here is, don't overindulge in one food group. Make sure that, like Ann said, the meat of your meal is vegetables, and then build it out from there. Keeping in mind that, the meats and the heavier proteins are going to be more acid forming in your body. So keeping that balance in mind of like how to build your plate to be more balanced, not like a food pyramid, because that's out of balance, but more of like vegetables at the center, and then add a few little things out from there, and not overindulge in any one thing, but not enjoy your food too.
Enjoying food is extremely important. And, eating something like an avocado and some berries for breakfast, and maybe having your sourdough bread then maybe for lunch you have a good salad. And if you are a carnivore and you want to do fish, then, you can do that. And maybe for dinner, you can do your potatoes and some beans instead of, a meat, which is a lot more healthy with some good fiber, and or some nuts and cheese, depending on your sensitivity to dairy. We don't want to overdo the dairy, but cheese is acceptable in small quantities. So, having a good chili that is meat free at this point, and maybe saving your meat for a lunch with some cheese, with some a salad or some other vegetables. So it's figuring out how to balance that out so that you're eating more of an 80% alkaline to 20% acidic.
Gotcha. Rochelle, I'm sorry I interrupted you earlier about you were going to talk about how kids.
But what's been going through my head as we're talking is like, I'm very scientific when I think about food, but I think of like a petri dish, right? And you've got, which is our body, and then you add things to it. And what we don't want to happen, like Ann said, is these like cancers to form and grow, or candida, or, things that can really overtake our body and be hazardous to our health. So when we're combining foods, we're almost thinking of ways to add things to that petri dish without anything happening. So it's almost like a challenge. Like, what can I add to my dish that will keep it in harmony and balanced so that things aren't growing and festering and taking over my body that I don't want there? But yes, so kids, my child is a picky eater. I was a little picky when I was a kid too. So that can be kind of challenging. I still have my favorites, not going to lie. But there's a way to be creative when we're working with our palates and our preferences. So parents know their kids the best, right? So looking at, well, what does my child like? What do they enjoy? What do they avoid? I'm 99% sure that something they like is alkaline forming. So looking at what they enjoy and what they like, that is also, minimal ingredients, we're talking like whole foods, and then making sure that they're eating a lot of that alkaline forming food and minimizing, especially the sugar for kids these days, is imperative. I mean, just looking at like a bottle of ketchup, there's so much sugar in ketchup. I saw a graphic the other day that a gentleman posted on social media of a bottle of barbecue sauce, and no joke, like 80% of it was filled with sugar. Like, he had the empty bottle with the amount of sugar and then the real thing, and 80% of it or more was just pure sugar. And I'm like, this is disgusting to think about it, which is probably why my husband, when he has barbecue sauce, his stomach hurts all night long. I digress. Anyway, so finding what your children enjoy and what they like, and then kind of building their meal around that, making sure that they're never limit the alkaline forming foods. Like, eat as much as you want. You got to have some protein to build those muscles. Make sure it's a lighter protein, especially for our kids, because they do not want to be weighed down. But also, making sure, especially the vegetables, that's, I know, hard for some kids. I don't know that my daughter's ever eaten a vegetable, but a good multivitamin to kind of support that as they're learning to eat and grow in what they eat. And don't pressure them. I know a lot of parents are really worried about, my kid's not eating this, they should be. But the more you pressure them, usually it's a turnoff. Encourage food play. Maybe they don't want to eat the carrot. Maybe they'd rather build a fort out of it. That's okay.
But if they'll eat the cantaloupe or the strawberries, as much as they want, is good.
Yes.
And then, peanut butter is a good option for kids. Don't buy the peanut butter that's loaded with sugar. Really read your labels. And, you don't want these terrible hydrogenated oils. You don't want the colorings and, nasty stuff. Look for a more natural peanut butter, but still something they will eat. Or maybe they like eating nuts, once they get old enough to do so.
Yeah.
Nuts are a wonderful source. Walnuts are really good for the brain, and a developing brain would be really good on walnuts. And, some kids, there are very few kids that don't like peanut butter.
That's true. And if they can't have a peanut butter, there are plenty of options like sunflower butter, cashew butter to kind of fill that niche in the pantry. But
what about almond butter?
Almond butter. Yeah, that's good. It has been said not to overdo the almonds. A little is good, but now sunflower butter is my favorite. Several of us have kind of a sensitivity to peanuts, and sunflower butter is excellent. You can get an organic variety that's very creamy, tastes extremely good. It is great for cooking. If you want to cook with it, just substitute it for peanut butter. And that's what we have used for years.
Huh. I've never had sunflower butter.
Yes, you want to try it. It's really good.
Yeah.
I will check
and
that
I
out.
think it's more of a naturally sweet nut butter, if you will. It's my favorite.
Yep.
Wow. Well, ladies, I can't tell you how interesting this has been. And, I'll try to get over my meat and potatoes depression. But I try to eat, a lot of vegetables, and I try to eat fish. I'll try to eat more fish than my wife, however. She's a meat and potatoes kind of girl. So I'm going to have to share this episode with her for sure. So, but appreciate it. And we'll see you in the next episode on Holographic Health.
Thanks, Skip.
Have a good evening.
You too.
Thanks for joining us on Holographic Health Insights. If you're ready to dive deeper into transformative health approaches, visit holographichealth.com or give us a call at 800-566-1522. Remember, your journey to total well-being starts here.